Alright, if you've seen my videos in the past, you probably know that I'm not entirely against the use of artificial sweeteners. With the evidence we currently have, it seems like the use of artificial sweeteners at normal doses is not only safe, but it seems to be an extremely effective tool for weight loss. However, if you're a rat or a bunch of cells in a petri dish being given hundreds if not thousands of times more artificial sweeteners than you would ever find in any sort of diet soda, then you may have a few issues to worry about. And I understand I'm saying this facetiously, but all of these negative outcomes that people often propose have all been shown in animals or cells in a petri dish. And when we actually give humans artificial sweeteners, there seems to be absolutely no adverse consequences. Some studies even indicating that participants that got a non-nutritive sweetened beverage at the end of the study lost more weight than the participants only given water. And this isn't because there's any magical fat-burning properties inside of artificial sweeteners, but it likely caused these individuals to eat less total energy throughout the day, and they ended up losing weight. And because they had this sweet craving fulfilled, they were actually able to restrict energy more than the group only given water. With that being said, I recommend to most people to use liquid-based artificial sweeteners, such as a liquid stevia. And oftentimes I recommend to stay away from packaged sweeteners like Sweet and Low, Splenda, or even stevia in the raw in its package. And the reason for this is not the artificial sweetener. Rather, it's the carbohydrate mixed with these artificial sweeteners as a bulking agent. For example, if you take a packet of stevia in the raw, the first ingredient is actually going to be cane sugar. And in things like Splenda and Sweet and Low, we'll find maltodextrin and dextrose. And these three ingredients are simply just natural carbohydrates, which means that unlike the artificial sweeteners, they do contain calories that we will absorb. It's actually estimated that some of these packets contain about 3.3 calories. But because this is less than 5 calories, these companies are technically allowed to write 0 calories on the nutrition facts. And now, why are these companies adding carbohydrates to bulk up the product? The reason is because these artificial and non-nutritive sweeteners are actually almost 200 times sweeter than sugar. So the amount of non-nutritive sweetener that you would actually add to a beverage to sweeten it to the taste that you would like is so minuscule you wouldn't be able to measure it and put it into a packet. So these companies are forced to bulk up the non-nutritive sweeteners with other carbohydrate sources like maltodextrin, dextrose, and even cane sugar. So really what I recommend is when you're buying artificial sweeteners, I tend to choose the liquid artificial sweeteners. But all that's really important is that you look at the ingredient label and see if all it is artificial sweeteners or a non-nutritive sweetener like stevia, and whether or not it has other bulking agents. And this is especially important for anyone who doesn't really feel too great after they've had an artificial sweetener that's come from a package. And the reason I say this is because for a very small subset of the population, artificial sweeteners can cause what's called reactive hypoglycemia. And this is when the package of artificial sweeteners increases your blood glucose levels just slightly. This causes your pancreas to release a blood glucose lowering hormone called insulin. Insulin allows the cells to uptake glucose out of the bloodstream. But some people produce just a little bit too much insulin and they'll get reactive hypoglycemia. This means that their blood glucose will fall below normal levels. And when this occurs, this means that the main energy source for the brain, which is glucose, is beginning to fall low in the bloodstream. And we have regulatory mechanisms to sense this, and then we'll begin to release what are called glucocorticoids. These are things that you've probably heard of and you may even be scared of, like cortisol and adrenaline. And all these really do is just increase the available fuel in the bloodstream in the form of glucose, amino acids, which come from protein, and free fatty acids. But these glucocorticoids can also do other things like increase our heart rate and constrict our blood vessels, which are some of the main symptoms of hypoglycemia. And now this typically is very mild, but for some people it can be more severe. And if you have certain conditions where you have improper glucose regulation, like diabetes, you might be more at a risk of this reactive hypoglycemia. So if you have adverse symptoms after using these packaged sweeteners, but these packaged sweeteners are helping you lose weight, my simple recommendation is to switch to a liquid sweetener, which is typically going to be much more concentrated and usually only contains the specific non-nutritive sweetener we're looking for.